Henry Ford was born on July 30, 1863, in a prosperous farm in Greenfield, Michigan, being the second of 8 children that William Ford and Mary Littlegut had. Growing up, Henry alternated attending classes in a one-room school with helping his father with the harvest. Although he hoped his son would take over the farm in the future, Henry had other plans. When his mother died in 1876, Henry was devastated, as she was the only thing he loved about the farm. In 1879, at the age of 16, he left his father to go to work as a machinist in Detroit, first with James F. Flower and Bros, and then with the Detroit Dry Dock Co. 3 years later, he returned to the farm, working part-time for the Westinghouse Engine Company, where he serviced their steam engines. In his spare time, he built a small tractor, using an old mower as a chassis and a homemade steam engine. However, he considered that the steam was not suitable for light vehicles and that the boiler was dangerous. In 1885, he had the chance to repair an auto engine, which led him to build his own 4-stroke engine by 1887. Henry Ford married Clara Jane Bryant in 1888, whom he supported by combining farm work with a sawmill, and with whom he had an only child named Edsel Bryant Ford. In 1890, Henry began building a 2-cylinder engine, and in 1891 he entered the Edison Illuminating Company of Detroit, being promoted to chief engineer by the end of 1893. In that same year, with time and money, Henry managed to complete his first gasoline bogie. Using the 2-cylinder, 4-horsepower engine he had developed, the vehicle reached 20 miles per hour, and Ford drove it until 1896, covering about 1,000 miles. In that year, Ford began to develop his first car as such, which he would call the Quadricycle. Also, in that year, in a meeting with executives, he met Thomas Alva Edison, who encouraged him to work on a new model, which Ford designed and finished building by 1898. With the financial backing of Detroit lumber baron William H. Murphy, Ford resigned from the Edison Company and founded the Detroit Automobile Company on August 5, 1899. However, the vehicles produced were of lower quality and more expensive than Ford would have liked. While the partners wanted a passenger car that could be sold, Ford insisted on continually improving each model he worked on, arguing it was not ready for customers. Finally, the company was not successful and was dissolved in January 1901. With the help of C. Harold Wills, Ford designed, built, and successfully raced a 26-horsepower automobile on October 1901. With this achievement, Murphy and other partners in the Detroit Automobile Company formed the Henry Ford Company on November 30, 1901, with Ford as superintendent. However, in 1902, Murphy brought in Henry M. Leland as a consultant, and Ford, in response, resigned from the company that bore his name. With him gone, and with Leland's technical support, instead of liquidating it, Murphy renamed it the Cadillac Automobile Company. Teaming up with former racing cyclist Tom Cooper, Ford also built the 80-plus horsepower racing car called the 999, which Barney Oldfield would drive to victory in a race on October 1902. A former Ford acquaintance and coal dealer, Alexander Y. Malcolmson, supported him financially, and together they formed Ford and Malcolmson Ltd. for building automobiles. Ford set to work in the design of an affordable car, and the two rented a factory and hired the brothers John and Horace E. Dodge to provide them with about $160,000 in machinery parts. However, things were slow, and a crisis arose when the Dodge brothers demanded payment for their first shipment. In response, Malcolmson brought in another group of investors and convinced the Dodge brothers to accept a share of the new company, which was reincorporated as the Ford Motor Company on June 16, 1903, with a capital of just $28,000. Ford then demonstrated a second version of the 999 on the ice of Lake St. Clair, covering 1 mile in 39.4 seconds and reaching a speed record of 91.3 miles per hour, which helped the Ford brand to be known throughout the United States. A month after the company was established, the first Ford car, the 8-horsepower, 2-cylinder Model A, was assembled at a plant on Mack Avenue in Detroit. At that time, only a few cars were put together per day, and groups of 2 or 3 workers built them by hand using parts ordered from other companies. Ford was dedicated to designing an efficient and reliable car that was accessible to everyone. To accomplish this, he tried out up to 8 different car models, with the N being the most successful. The result was the Model T, which made its debut on October 1, 1908. The Tin Lizzie, as the Model T was known, 4-cylinder and priced at $825, was an immediate success, and Ford soon had more orders than the company could fulfill. As a result, Ford implemented mass production techniques that would revolutionize American industry, including the use of large manufacturing plants, standard and interchangeable parts, and the mobile assembly line. This allowed the time required to produce an automobile to be drastically reduced and a significant economy of scale to be achieved, so that while demand grew, the price dropped every year, reaching $360 for the base model in 1916. This vehicle was widely advertised by Ford, and thanks to the local dealer network, it was present in almost any city in the United States. By 1918, year in which he appointed his son as president of the company, half of all cars in that country were Model Ts. Ford was almost obsessed with efficiency, to such an extent that since the creation of the assembly line, all Model Ts were black, due to their shorter drying time. However, controlling the assembly processes was not enough, since he depended on many elements manufactured by third parties, which could not necessarily cover the demand in the times he needed. This made him project a large investment for a totally self-sufficient plant in River Rouge, which was started in 1917 and took almost 11 years to complete. This involved buying a railroad, acquiring control of 16 coal mines and about 700,000 acres of forest, building a sawmill, acquiring a fleet of freighters to bring iron from his mines in Lake Superior, and even buying a glassworks company. From the arrival of the ore to the departure of an entire car, 28 hours passed. At its peak, Ford's holdings ranged from the iron mines of northern Michigan to the jungles of Brazil, operating in 33 countries. The most surprising thing is that it was not necessary to borrow a penny for it. Everything was built with the profits of the Model T. In addition to making that great investment in the future, in 1921, Ford diversified by buying the Lincoln Motor Co., created by Cadillac founder Henry Leland and his son during World War I. Edsel believed in expanding into the luxury sector, while his father was not too thrilled about it. Moreover, Ford ventured into aviation with the Ford 4AT tri-motor and became the largest commercial aircraft manufacturer of the time. By 1925, the Model T was being built at a rate of 9,000 to 10,000 units per day and was priced at only $260. Unfortunately, Henry Ford relied too much on his instinct for the market and was slow to accept that it already demanded more than just a utility car. By the time he realized the change in trend, due to the lagging sales of the Model T, he had to stop his plans for 5 months to retool them and finally introduced, in December 1927, the new Ford Model A, which had more power and better brakes. After 19 years and a record 15,007,033 units sold, the Ford Model T ended production. it would take 45 years for a production car to exceed that number. Although the Model A sold very well, Ford's dominance was not the same as before, in the face of the growth of brands such as Chevrolet and Plymouth, and was discontinued in 1931. By 1932, Ford introduced the V8, the first low-priced 8-cylinder engine, but that didn't stop the Ford Motor Company from being the third largest seller in the industry by 1936. It seems that the delay in adapting to the changes really had its toll on the company. Thanks to the insistence of his son Edsel, Ford launched in 1939 the Mercury brand for intermediate-level vehicles, with the intention of competing with Dodge and Buick, but he really did it without conviction. In that decade of the 30s, Ford had several strokes, which left him increasingly weak physically and with diminished mental agility. Additionally, Ford fought to keep his employees out of the United Automobile Workers Union, but eventually, despite his efforts, using company police, labor spies, and violence, they became part of it in 1941, even under Ford's threat to suspend operations before being forced to sign a labor contract. Once the United States entered the World War II, Ford participated in the manufacture of the B-24 bomber, the most produced in history, having the largest assembly line in the world and completing a plane in 18 hours. In 1943, his son Edsel died of cancer, and he returned to the presidency of the company, despite his age and fragile health, position which he maintained until he resigned in favor of his grandson Henry Ford II in 1945. Ford died at his Fairlane estate in Dearborn, Michigan on April 7, 1947, after a brain hemorrhage at the age of 83. Henry Ford was a complex person. On the one hand, he was branded an anti-Semite because of a series of writings that he later published as a book, under the title of The International Jew, and even received the Great Cross of the German Eagle, the highest medal that Nazi Germany could bestow on a foreigner. On the other hand, he personally tried to negotiate peace in World War I. At one time, he doubled the salary of his employees, but at another time, he cut it below the market minimum. He showed an unusual business vision when developing the Model T, incorporating advances never seen before in terms of production, and at the same time a lack of it by not recognizing in time the need to incorporate new technologies and respond to the trend dictated by the market. Yet, despite all this, it was largely thanks to him that the automobile industry became what it is today, making available to millions what used to be accessible to only a few. Something that had a profound impact on the way of life at the beginning of the last century, especially in the United States. If you liked this video, please share it with your friends and family and subscribe to our channel so we can make more like this one. And activate the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos. Thank you very much.